I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Wrestling with Sales, and today we're going up high. We're joined by the Mile High Magnum himself, Dak Draper, your reigning, defending, and I'll say undisputed Central States Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. Dak, hey, thanks for joining us here on Wrestling with Sales.
And anybody who denies that, I got 3 words for him. It's shame on you. There's no shame on you right now. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And not going to say it's disputed because I don't think it's going to be all that much of a contest. But coming up this Saturday in Kansas City, just down the road from the Lenexa City Center at the National Guard Armory, it's Iron Sharpens Iron. Our guest, the Mile High Magnum Dak Draper, your Central States Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, going to be defending it in a 60-minute Ironman match against the Monarch Jeremy Wyatt. You can still get tickets Saturday, July 29th, right there. Bell time at 7, gates open at 6. And we can see Dak defending that title. It's a unification match against Jeremy Wyatt, the Monarch. Like I said, I don't think it's a disputed championship, but how do you feel going into that? You two guys have crossed paths a lot in the Midwest in all sorts of different territories, champions all around the Midwest.
Yeah, we've crossed paths a lot. First off, there's no way this would be a disputed championship since Jeremy Wyatt was in the match where I won this championship.
True.
So, yeah, if anything's disputed, it'd be the DWF championship. That's not even called the Central States. What is a DWF? Nobody even remembers. But, yeah, Jeremy Wyatt and I, in all seriousness, we've wrestled all over the Midwest, especially in Kansas City. And for me, this match is more than just for the unification of the championship. This is 1 hour where the 2 most important figures in Kansas City wrestling in the last decade are going to go out there. They're going to set the timer for 1 hour, and the one who has the most falls at the end of the hour is the champion. And it's just going to show who is the most important figure to Kansas City wrestling in the last decade. And I feel like it's going to be a great way for us to go out there and take the whole second half of the show and to prove who is the real man of the last decade in KC.
That's, a lot of stakes in it because you guys first started running into each other back when it was the National Wrestling League, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was NWL then. And that's when Jeremy Wyatt had been around. I think he'd been around for about a decade in Kansas City up to that point. And I had just moved here from Denver. And we definitely had different trajectories where he was the constant and people were used to seeing Jeremy Wyatt. And I came in and just rocketed up the card, took the NWL by storm. And we always had that. Even when we would see eye to eye, we always had that little bit of headbutting there where there was just friction between us, like that kind of healthy friction there, that competition. And it's boiled over a few times for sure. And it's going to boil over yet again. I was trying to tally how long I've wrestled Jeremy Wyatt before this hour. And I ran out of time and just got distracted because we've wrestled so many times in such long matches. And so this is going to be another one where I want to say that I hope that it's the end of the book, but I just have a feeling that, life starts going well and Jeremy Wyatt pops up again. So it's one of those things that I don't know if we'll ever be done with it, but if we are done with it after this, we're going to show who is the most important figure in Kansas City wrestling in the last 10 years.
As a dealer, you spend a lot of time buying cars at auction. If you're using Edge Pipeline to manage your purchases, then this is big news. Montway Auto Transport has partnered with Auction Edge to add a transportation option onto Edge Pipeline. Now dealers can manage their auction buys and book transportation with just one click right in the Edge Pipeline platform. As a nationwide leader in auto transport, Montway understands a dealer's need for speed and efficiency and can arrange single or multi-vehicle moves from auction to any lot in the country. With Montway's technology, dealers can gain full transit visibility and tracking after an order has been booked, making it much easier to manage inventory. Buy, ship, and track all in Edge Pipeline. Go to www.montway.com/WS to learn more. That's definitely a very clearly drawn line, and unique way to settle it too, the Iron Man match. I had a chance to talk to TJP recently, and he had what I thought was one of the best Iron Man matches I've ever seen against Josh Alexander for the Impact title. And he
Mhm.
just talked about how much went into it and how proud he was to have completed that match just because of the physical challenge and the mental challenge to make it through an hour. I mean,
Yep.
that's a lot of time to be in the ring.
A ton of time. It's I've been training for it too. I was down at the Kansas City Pro Wrestling Academy on Monday. It was just having students come in, new student every 10 minutes, new guy every 10 minutes, just staying
Okay.
the bull in the ring, trying to make sure that like my body is there, my lungs are there, but most importantly that my mind is there. Because when you get past that like 30-minute mark, that's when you get tired, you start to make
Hmm.
mistakes, not thinking as clearly. And so it's going to be my mind above all, because my mind's the general, my body's the army, and I need my body to follow. If my mind's right, my body will follow.
Good idea. And now you mentioned the Kansas City Wrestling Academy. I had a chance to get up there a week ago and just see some of the young guys. Scott Tyler was up there, and the Hoodie, and Anaya, the Hollits were up there working it. Heidi Howitzer. With the school in the city, what does that do for the whole wrestling community, let alone for Central States Wrestling?
Well, I don't think that there's been somewhere in Kansas City for a while since NWL left where wrestlers can go get trained by wrestlers and work with wrestlers that are actually traveling and wrestling on shows that are above the level that happen both like in Kansas City and around the Midwest, where before I don't feel like there was that window to the outside. And
Sure.
with us having the Kansas City Pro Wrestling Academy, I feel like they get to get in there and wrestle, like just like on Tuesday the kids got to get in and they got to wrestle with me, where they typically, like when I was at their experience level, I never got to touch someone in the ring that was wrestling for the NWA and had wrestled in Ring of
Mhm.
Honor, had wrestled in NXT. And so I feel like it's this great opportunity for them to really feel how the level that they need to get to in order to be a traveling wrestler, in order to be making money doing this, in order to do this at the level they want to do it at versus just the hobby level.
Yeah, and actually learn the proper technique and probably more importantly, the mental aspects of the job. When I was up there, quite a bit of what I saw was Hoodie talking to the young guys about how to present yourself,
Yep,
how to cut the promo, how to engage, how to connect with your audience, which I think is a huge, huge part of it. I mean, if you watch the national channels right now, watch the WWE, a guy you ran into quite often in the past, Eli Drake. Now
yep,
he's L.A. Knight. He's getting a lot of press because he's making that connection to the audience.
absolutely.
He's not even getting a chance to really wrestle much, but he's making that connection. And then over in AEW, Adam Cole, baby, the people are ready for story time with Adam Cole and they're listening to him. And I think when you go to a Central State show, when you go to an NWA show, when you come out, when the Mile High Magnum comes out, there's that same connection. You don't have to say a whole lot, and the whole crowd is focused on you. Like I said when we were talking before we started, first independent wrestling show my wife went to, as soon as you came out, she went, "Oh, yeah, he's the best guy." And of course, that's the match that you won the Central States Championship in.
You have a very smart wife.
Yeah, yeah, she's happy to be part of the Central States Wrestling family. We've had a chance to sponsor some of the women's matches and getting a chance to sponsor a couple other matches. So yeah, it's great to be involved, and it's really fun to see the community come out. All the kids, that's what she really liked. All the kids, all the families getting involved, having a good time, and connecting, which is what I think is important because the idea of wrestling with sales is helping people make that connection to whatever their base is. Well, it's really transparent in pro wrestling. Your base is the people sitting in the stands, the people that are coming in, the word of mouth that's bringing more families in. And it's really been a dramatic difference in Central States Wrestling. You can see that connection being made as people are coming in and filling up the CSW zone. I mean, this is a Saturday. Here's a picture of a crowd from a couple of shows ago. Saturday night, middle of the month, very little promotion, and it was packed.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we've done such a good job of making that connection with the fans, making the fans feel like it's an event. Everything is, and that comes from the top, from with matchmaker Michael Strider,
Mm-hmm.
where he puts matches together where he doesn't use guys that he thinks aren't going to connect with the fans. And I feel like it comes down from the top. We all believe in what Central States Wrestling is doing. We believe that Central States Wrestling has the best of intentions for us. And I feel like when you believe that, you can really go full force into something. You can dive in head first just kind of dipping your toe in.
Yeah, because you need to be committed. You're putting your body on the line, you're putting your time on the line, and you're also passing up opportunities for other shows. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we can see you on NWA. You can search NWA on YouTube, and you can see Dak teaming up in Magnum Muscle with Mims. Real prominent role in the National Wrestling Alliance, the relaunch of that. So you're out there on the national scene and experience and time in NXT, in Ring of Honor. And I'm sure the goal is to continue that trajectory and get to where you deserve to be at the highest level.
Oh, absolutely. My goal is to be as popular of a wrestler as I can be, to make as much money in wrestling as I can be, and really to accomplish. I've got a quiet list of goals that I have in wrestling, and I do feel like the time is getting. Of course, time is something that we can never get back. I feel like the two most important things you have in life are your time and your attention, and so I feel like the closer I get to accomplishing those goals, the more almost stressed I become about it, because then you start to feel the time ticking away. I feel like it's like anything where when you look, you don't see, when you're at the bottom, you don't see how many levels there are to something. As you get closer,
Sure.
you can see, okay, I need to jump to this level. You don't realize there's say you want to go from level 2 to level 3. You don't realize you have level 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D
Mm-hmm.
until you're in it. And so I feel like that's something where as the higher I get in wrestling, the closer that I get to accomplishing my goals, the more that I realize that, oh, I need to work even harder. You get to a point, you think, oh, I've worked really hard to get here. Well, now you have to work that hard to stay there, and you have to work even harder to get to the next level.
Yeah, it's just like somebody that's at a dealership, or maybe you're selling insurance and you look at that top salesperson, you're saying, hey, I want to be that guy. I want to be that lady. Look at how much they sell, and they do it, and it doesn't even look hard. Well, it doesn't look hard because they're really fluid at it. They've been doing it for a long time, and they're putting the effort in. You just don't even see it because they're so smooth and efficient in what they're doing.
They've been
But
putting
it's not easy.
Oh, absolutely. They've been putting the effort in for so long that their level of effort looks effortless.
Hmm.
And if it was easy, everybody would be the top salesperson. If it was easy, everybody would be holding this title right here.
Yep.
But it's not, and that's the beauty of it. It's where you become so engulfed in the process. The process becomes who you are. Just like right before we started filming, I was eating a big bowl of chicken and rice. That's just my life. It's a non-negotiable, because your life just starts to become, everything that you do revolves around being successful in what you do. And if you love what you do, then it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like,
Sure.
well, what I do in my life.
Now, I've had a chance to talk with, well, TJP, with some trainers from New Japan. And a long time ago, back when I did Morning Drive Radio, I had Lord Stephen Regal on. And they all said something that was very familiar and very similar, that they believe it takes about 10 years to hit your peak as a pro wrestler. And that most of the best pro wrestlers in the world are 37, 38 years old. Do you agree with that? Do you think it takes that long to really hit your stride?
I'm 10 years into wrestling now, and
Yeah.
just the quality of matches I have and the ease of having those matches, as compared to if I had a match close to the matches that I have pretty regularly now,
Hmm.
the level of effort I would have to put into it or I feel like there were times where I'd have really good matches, but it was more like lightning in a bottle, where it was just the stars aligned for that match to be really
Sure.
good. where now it's something that's just constant for me. And I agree with that so much. Like I feel like everything in the past, over the past year, right when I got 10 years in, has started to make so much more sense. It started to become so second nature. And it's something where it makes me think about how when NWL started, Jeremy Wyatt was 10 years in. I think he maybe even more than 10 years in.
Okay.
And if he wasn't 10 years in, he sure gave off the impression he was 10 years in because he was so damn good. But and we were all babies. I think I was 4 years into wrestling. Hoodie Howlett had been wrestling for a while, but not as long as Wyatt. Anaya was like 2 years in. Everybody, Moonshine was, I think, 3 years in. So we were all pretty new. And I feel like it had to be very, very, looking back, I can see why Wyatt's so grumpy now, because if I had to hang out with these toddlers in wrestling and just pull them through matches and see these guys get popular from a lot of the stuff that we picked up from him, yeah, I'd probably be a little irritated myself.
Fair enough. Now, did the NWL, is that what brought you to Kansas City?
Yep. I was, so I started wrestling. I was a college wrestler, so I was an amateur wrestler.
Okay.
I got into amateur wrestling because when I was a kid, my mother hated that I liked to watch WWF on TV.
Uh-huh.
Go to kids wrestling practice in order to watch Monday Night Raw. But I liked kids wrestling. I liked wrestling too. So I got good at it, was really good at it in high school, even better at it in college. Then my senior year at the NCAA tournament, I got approached by a scout from WWE, got signed to NXT. I spent 2 years there. And then upon leaving NXT, I moved back to Colorado. And I got really lucky because Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, which still runs out of Denver,
yeah,
they started, their owner, Matt Yaden, who was one of my original trainers, him and Pat Tanaka. They were, he really wanted to run a lot of shows. And so he ran like over 100 shows in the first year that I was gone from NXT. So I got to take all this knowledge that I learned at the WWE Performance Center and apply it on my own. And everything, their production is great. Everything was filmed. And so I could watch it all back. And I still, to this day, I'll watch my film back because I feel like that's very important. And you have to be critical of yourself.
Sure.
I might be overcritical because I feel like, because I know what's going to happen next, I just watch it like I suck. But I feel like that makes me a better wrestler every time because I come out of it with criticisms for myself. And so I got to spend a year and a half in Rocky Mountain Pro where I might not have known what was good, but I knew what was bad. And so when I would watch my stuff back, I'd say, oh, well, that was bad. I shouldn't do that. And through trial and error, I probably had about 200 matches in that year and a half where by the time NWL happened, I was working at a gym, and Chris Goff, who used to run Metro Pro Wrestling.
Sure.
Chris Goff. I love Chris Goff. I'd run through a wall for Chris Goff. He was our boss at NWL.
Mm-hmm.
He called me, and it was like, he called me, and my girlfriend at the time and she hated pro wrestling. When she started dating me, I was an MMA fighter. So she hated pro wrestling. She wanted to date a fighter. And so she's in the room, and I get on the phone with Goff, and he offers to fly me out to Kansas City to see what NWL has going on. And I hang up the phone, and I was like, yeah, that was about a pro wrestling gig. And she goes, you have to be kidding me. And I was like, I think we should break up. So we broke up.
There you are. Good career decision.
Yep. I knew I was back in business. They flew me out to check it out. And I remember just looking at the setup, and I think Goff thought he was going to have to pitch to me. And I turned to Goff and I said, are you guys going to offer me a contract today? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, all right, well, let's just go straight to that.
Sure. Yeah. It was such a crazy setup with the NWL, and you can go back and search on YouTube. I had Chris Goff on a couple months ago talking about it, and he has his own podcast, The Worst Territory in the World, which is kind of a sarcastic take on Kansas City wrestling. But the NWL was really unique, and what's left of the NWL is still very, very much a part of Central States wrestling DNA.
I feel like something that stands out about the NWL is how glowingly all the people that were involved really closely, especially over the last 6 months there, how glowingly they speak about it. Everybody speaks about it like it's a celebrated relative that passed away, where it was, oh, if only. Like everybody just is glowing about the NWL and the experience that we had. And I think Kansas City was the best place for it because the people in Kansas City. Kansas City just has a special kind of people. And I talk to a lot of people about this that are not from Kansas City. And people just, they're not as stuck up or as snooty as most places. They don't worry about what other people think as much. They're going to go out and they're going to enjoy a wrestling show, and they're going to be loud, and they're going to be loud. They're going to interact. They're going to boo the heels. They're going to baby faces. It's just, I don't know. It's Kansas City's a great city for wrestling. And it's so funny that the podcast is called The Worst Territory in the World, because that's what a lot of the old timers thought about the Central States territory.
Mm-hmm.
But I moved here from Colorado for NWL. Hoodie, Anaya, they both moved here from Denver.
Yep.
Moonshine moved here from Texas. And then after NWL closed, we all moved away, and we all found our way back because we all missed Kansas City. So you got 4 crazy guys who moved back to the worst territory in the world.
And rebuilding it, getting that enthusiasm back. And now you have some online presence. You can actually check out the Central States wrestling shows on YouTube, watch the whole card. Really well produced, the same kind of quality production you tune in and you see on TV. You can check it out and pop it up on YouTube on your screen. It looks great on the big screens. You can check out those matches I was talking about with Dak on there. And I think that's something that's different in independent wrestling now, is that availability to televise the product. Mm-hmm. Had a chance to talk with Mojo Raleigh. He's running Paragon Talent. And I asked him, hey, what about the growth of independent wrestling? How is that helping people now?
It's been great, man. It's another avenue for guys to get their name out there, to go out there and actually have your hard work rewarded. I mean, for such a long time, if you weren't with one of the bigs, your work went unnoticed, and you had to hope you wrestled long enough to try and get a call that led to 8 more calls before you could finally have that first tryout or audition. I mean, now you can just have one really good day, and that might get you an opportunity. I love that. And that's producing a lot of talent that probably we would have never been able to see. So it's been awesome.
And I think what he was talking about there, and what I wanted to ask you, is the presence of the online video. You can go down the rabbit hole and you can watch, mentioned Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling. You can go on YouTube and you can see they're up to 382 episodes now of Rocky Mountain Pro. Another really well-produced show. That just gives so many avenues for people to get discovered and to get into the spotlight.
It made it so easy for us, where there are guys who in Rocky Mountain Pro or in Denver who we want to help get out of Colorado, because Colorado is a wasteland for wrestling. It's just geographically isolated. The opposite kind of people that live there from Kansas City, where people, it's not trendy to go to a pro wrestling show, as they're never going to check it out, and they're not going to check it out. They're going to rob themselves of a good time because they don't want to tell people that they're going to pro wrestling. So I don't like Denver for pro wrestling. I love Denver as a city that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. I don't like Denver for pro wrestling. And there are some guys there that we were trying to get booked in Central States Wrestling. It was really easy when we go to Michael Strider and be like, hey, look at this match. And you could just pull it up on your phone, or you can send it to him. It makes it so much easier. I do feel like it's a double-edged sword, though, because I was talking about how earlier sometimes the stars would align and I would have a match that was way better than anything that I was capable of.
Sure.
I feel like there are some guys where I'll watch a match and I'm like, oh, this guy's really good. And then we'll get out there and they'll hit me in the chin a bunch of times and break my jaw. And
that's true.
My jaw is still clicking from a guy like that. But it's just I feel like it's a double-edged sword. But the thing is, if you keep putting out that quality content, you're gonna get noticed, or at least I like to believe that you're gonna get noticed by someone. Especially in wrestling, it gives you control. It gives you more control, because pro wrestling is a business of moving goalposts. You can kick a field goal and it looks like it's going to make it in, and that goalpost moves 10 yards back.
Sure.
Face the goalpost again. So just having that, having the ability to have your matches broadcast so much more, it just gives you more at bats and more at bats. So I definitely think it's 99% to 1% awesome. And that 1% is the double-edged sword that I mentioned, whereas sometimes guys can be presented as a little better than they are.
Yeah, maybe get moved up a little bit too fast.
But my real question about Mojo, about what Mojo was, where did that hair come from? I've known the guy for 10 years. And he was been bald as a baby the entire time I knew him until like 2 years ago.
Yeah, he's growing it out to be on TMZ Sports.
Oh, well, there we go. I
didn't it out for TV.
I always assumed that he was not bald by choice. I assumed that he was bald by necessity. But like on Facebook, I've seen all these pictures over the last year where he has this luscious hair. The guy's got more hair than I do now. I can't believe it.
Were you guys in NXT together?
Yeah, we were in NXT together.
Okay.
Party together. We used to have a really good time together because we were both former college athletes.
Yeah.
Of course, was a pro football player, but we were former college athletes. Me, him, and Angelo Dawkins, we got along really well. It was, Mojo. Mojo Rawley, he is the same guy that you see on screen as he is at 7 a.m. when we're at the Performance Center and nobody wants to count loud, and he's counting loud like he's a train conductor or something.
And you got to like what he's doing too, because Paragon Talent, he's giving wrestlers a chance to really kind of control their image, control their message, which is really a great ability because you don't have that union. You don't have a lot of agents running around. A lot of it's just you. So the idea to start up something to help the wrestlers is just a terrific idea.
It's just like sales. You're prospecting, and you have to do a lot of prospecting. And I think, and this goes with the fans and with finding your bookings. Like,
sure,
you want to. I think the number one rule of communication is know your audience, and so that's whether you're communicating with a promoter about wrestling for their show, whether you're out in a match. Like I always tell the young guys in the car, use the data you have, and if you don't have data, find a way to build some data. So that could be trying something really early in a match and seeing how the fans react. If they don't react to it at all, throw it away. You're not going to use it. If they react a little to it, maybe I'll try it one more time and see again. If they love it, okay. Everything we were going to do is change because we're going to use the data we have, and we know that that's going to get us a reaction. So I feel like it's very similar to sales prospecting.
Oh, very much so. I like telling salespeople that you need to be able to change your level, which is an old school amateur wrestling line. You want to get to the same height as your opponent. You want to change the level. Maybe you want to get lower.
Yep.
By saying change your level, I just mean if you're going to talk really, really fast and your customer's laid back and real hesitant, well, stop, slow down. And if the customer's going real fast, raise up your energy level because they don't want to hear you going, well, this is really nice. You should do it. You just lost the person. So very true. I mean, it applies in all arenas.
Absolutely. I'm going to have a different match for example, I was up in Chicago for Second Wrestling. They did these sports camp shows, which as a child who spent all of his summers in sports camps, it was like a dream to me on like a Wednesday afternoon to go to Chicago and go to these sports camps. And these kids don't know wrestling's going to happen. So they come walk in the auditorium, and you can hear just like that kind of low, like murmur get louder than when they see the wrestling ring set up, and they're like, oh, you could kind of hear the noise, the energy. But it's just, I'm going to have a different match for those kids at the sports camp than I am for like Ring of Honor, like for the Pure Rules match versus Jonathan Gresham. Versus Jonathan Gresham. They're going to be two very different matches because you have to know your audience and you have to know your levels there. Just like you're not going to talk a mile a minute like a New Yorker to Brenda from Alaska, who's going to talk very slow. And you're not going to talk like Brenda from Alaska to the New York guy who wants to come in and get his car and then buzz out of there.
Oh, yeah. No, I've consciously had to try to slow down my speech because the first 6 years I lived here, usually about the second question I got from anyone I was talking to is, okay, where'd you come from?
Yep.
You're not from here.
Yep.
Well, no.
Okay.
So,
I love Kansas City so much. I saw a post the other day, though, about how someone said, I love Kansas City because everyone agrees to just go drive 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. And I feel like that couldn't be more wrong. Like, Kansas City has a very lackadaisical driving pace.
Yeah, no, they're driving pretty quick. Just today, I saw Malibu zigzagging in and out of traffic at about 80 miles an hour. So yeah, no, there's people are willing to drive fast.
I feel like that's kind of the outlier, though. I think
Yeah,
for the most part, the cars are kind of moving slow like a herd of cattle.
taking their time.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
I guess maybe that's just me up in the Northland.
Oh, I crisscross the city, so I notice it mainly on the I-70 Speedway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
out here,
Look,
out in the
look.
Northland, no, not as much, but on the I-70 Speedway, going past Arrowhead, yeah, they're clipping.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're moving at that point.
Well, hey, let's go ahead and go to the championship round here. Just ask a few quick questions, kind of wind it down.
Like, are these answers I can think about, or it's like, boom, I got to
Yeah, just kind of quick ones.
All right, let's
You
do
can
it.
take a little time, no problem.
Turn my hat backwards
Absolutely.
so it doesn't get blown off my head.
Heading into the back half of 2023, what destinations do you want to go to that you haven't gone to yet this year?
I want to wrestle in Canada. I would also like to wrestle in Mexico. I haven't wrestled either of those places. So Canada, Mexico, and I'd like to get back to the West Coast also. I've been wrestling on the West Coast in like a year, so I'd like to do that also.
Good. What about a dream opponent that you haven't had a chance to wrestle yet?
Dream opponent that I've never gotten the chance to wrestle. I would say, ooh, that's kind of a tough one. Maybe Josh Alexander.
The walking weapon. Okay. And he's back, so that can happen.
Right.
Just showed back up at Slammiversary.
Also, someone else would be Jake something. We've had that match set up a few times and it's fallen through. Time it was one time his travel got messed up. One time I got sick, I think. So we've had the match booked a few times, but it's just fallen through. So I'd also really like to wrestle Jake something. Another guy who just returned to Impact.
Yeah, at the same show at Slammiversary, and had a match in Central States recently. You can check that one out.
Yep.
What about your favorite opponent of all time?
Ooh, my favorite opponent of all time. Well, this is going to be funny because it's Jeremy Wyatt.
Okay.
It's and for a lot of reasons, other guys that are up there too. Hoodie Howlett, Moonshine's always fun to wrestle. Jake Durden was great to wrestle. Chris Hero has been I remember when I was 3 years in, I wrestled Chris Hero, and I feel like I walked out. When I walked through the curtain, I was 3 years into wrestling. When I walked back through the curtain, I felt like I was 5 years into wrestling. I was just so much better of a wrestler after wrestling Chris Hero. But number one has got to be Wyatt, because we've wrestled each other so many times at so many different junctures of both of our careers. And I think it's really cool to see, just as we both have gotten so much better and just gained so much more knowledge and so much more experience, how we've continued. We've wrestled each other for like over 5 hours, like combined before this match.
Sure.
It's still, every match is so different from the other matches. And so we still find a way to like keep it interesting. And yeah, Jeremy Wyatt's got to be my number one opponent, who you're going to see me wrestle at on July 29th.
Well, and that's a good question to wind it down with, because like you said, Saturday, July 29th at the National Guard Armory, just past the Lenexa City Center, Jeremy Wyatt, the Monarch, going up against our guest, the Mile High Magnum Dak Draper, I'll say it, undisputed Central States Wrestling champion, in a 60-minute Ironman match. Iron sharpens iron. You can get the tickets, and it's coming up this weekend as you're watching this, Saturday, July 29th. Dak, do you got any words of warning for the Monarch as we close it out?
I just think regardless of what happens out there, Iron sharpens iron is the perfect name for this, because you've got two men who've been battle tested in this area for years and years. And honestly, may the best man win. And if he doesn't, then shame on you.
There you go. Great note to end it on. You can see new episodes of Wrestling with Sales every week on YouTube. If you need help moving some cars across the country, you can reach out to our friends at Montway Auto. Just go to www.montwayauto.com/WS, and we'll be back in the ring next week on Wrestling with Sales. Thanks again, Dak.
Thanks for having me.